Welcome back to the first 1000X podcast recorded with Bitcoin above $50,000.
Yay.
Because the last time we recorded, Bitcoin was hovering, I think it was hovering right below, like 49,979. And then it broke. And then, as we talked about, it broke. You actually had a little bit of time, solid amount of time once it broke. Realized that it broke, sat there, and then you go buy it, which I advocated for because I think that's generally the best risk-adjusted way to play these things if you're a trader. Now, Jonah, on the other hand, is just an absolute giga chad with balls of steel, and so has just been sitting massively long Bitcoin for the entire time and telling everybody not to sell, because why would anybody sell when this many flows are coming into this asset? And as always, Jonah was vindicated. He was right.
Not as always.
So, I had to give you something, Jonah.
Thank you.
Listen,
this
is a big win. We're sitting at 63K right now. Bitcoin is obviously leading the charge. ETH is catching up. I think this has been an amazing run. I think for the first time, I'm exercising a bit of caution, just because it's been so insane. And you have all-time high Bitcoin futures open interest. You have a tremendous amount of froth in the market. You have a lot of money flowing into alts. I think if there were any point to, at least if you're 100% long, get to 90, is a good point to start taking off some length, in my humble opinion, especially as we approach all-time highs. So I'm, for the first time, really thinking, hey, this has been a crazy run. Maybe it's time to cut back, go to the barbell strategy. Instead of being super Bitcoin heavy, you're alt heavy and cash heavy. Jonah, what do you think about that?
I don't want to be cash heavy. I'm still all in on this, but I trade less actively than you. So I think if we're going to try and monetize like some of the chop around here, because as markets, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about crude oil, crypto, or fucking the price of bananas, right? When markets start to melt up, they get really volatile and the pullbacks get severe. Now, I'm not watching crypto tick for tick every day anymore like I used to. I think you're right. Like, if you are watching it tick for tick, might pay to lighten up and then buy one of the inevitable savage dips that happens amidst this sort of upside volatility. But in terms of being cash heavy, I wouldn't want to be cash heavy. Like, I'm still bullish. I can't fucking see straight, and I think this thing is going to 100K.
And do you think that it's going to 100K promptly? I mean, what's your view here? I mean, how do you think these ETF inflows are sustainable? We've had some
mega
crazy inflows.
They're mega. You go to the Farside Investors ETF tracker page, it's like 500 mil a day, and it just isn't stopping. And it's just like your dentist, your grandpa, your doctor. They're all just buying it because now they can. And we talked about this on the podcast, 6 months ago. We talked about how the ETF launch was not a front-runnable event because there wasn't enough capital in this niche, weird, self-custodied little token space to front-run what would get debottlenecked by ETFs and institutional asset flows and broader retail. And so far, we're being proven right. And to me, it's like the halving hasn't even happened yet. Like, the miner selling has to slow down. It's maybe the miners are hanging on to BTC right now to sell after the halving, after some expected melt up. So maybe it doesn't melt up as fast as you expect. But like, come on, that's 3 1/8 BTC per block less forever. I can't imagine lightening up before that, unless the plan is literally to trade around the volatility. I do think if you're 100% long, you should take a bit of profit, but not.
I mean, Jonah, 3-month futures are now paying out 20% on BTC. I think 17% on ETH.
Yep,
that is massive. And generally, historically, even if you've had a tremendous amount of interest in this asset class, that has been the start of the end. Because when there's that much leverage and that much euphoria, what you tend to get reflexivity towards the downside. So no matter how many inflows are coming in, no matter how much is unlocked, when you have that amount of leverage in the system, you get these nasty pullbacks and it scares people off from buying. And I think what I'm trying to say is, one, you can't put yourself in a position to be carted out right now, because this is a more likely time than ever to experience a 30% pullback. And so you have to manage your risk super tightly here, like ridiculously tightly. And I think the best way to do that is to be allocated to alts that you think can run or that you're comfortable with long term. Because I do think capital is going to rotate out of BTC. But being 150% long BTC here is no longer the right move. We're actually at 40K. You can make an argument for it. At 25K, obviously, I think it was a simple argument. At 40K, a little bit harder. Now, I don't think you can make an argument for it. I don't think there's an argument even to be 100% allocated right now to BTC. I think the argument is to be 80%. Right? Yeah. And that, by the way, that's still super bullish. That's still ridiculously bullish from my perspective.
No, you're absolutely right. I agree with you. What I was saying, I think we agree, but maybe I didn't express my point clearly enough. I think if you're running like tons of leverage here, yeah, you should start to get careful, because the vol is about to get insane, and there will be some big drawdowns. But if you're just long 100% max long allocated cash only, no leverage, you can wear a 50% drawdown. I mean, look, on crypto Twitter, everybody is so like insanely bullish, gloating, victory lapping right now. The fear and greed index is max greed. Hasn't been here since 21. In 2021, when we hit these prices in May, the first thing that happened, Avi, is a 50% pullback, right? Just a savage, brutal 50% sell off to 30K, followed by a rip-roaring explosion to all-time highs. My personal trading strategy, because I don't use leverage, if it goes to 30K, I'm just going to buy more, especially if it happens before the halving, and I'm not going to panic. But if you're 150% long and you're going to panic if that happens, yeah, you better be lightening up right now. And to your second point about the rotation to alts, I'm seeing some really compelling arguments on Twitter that we're not going to get that rotation into alts this cycle. You would know better than me. You've seen multiple cycles. This is still kind of my first one. But this cycle, we're not going to see rotation to alts, because this is just ETF money coming in, and it's not degen money trying to play frog coins. You're on mute, by the way.
That is a fucking lie. That is such a degenerate, stupid fucking lie. I cannot stand it when people say this shit. I will actually, whoever tweets this, you have the brain of a monkey. And like one of those small, tiny monkeys, not like a gorilla, because gorillas can get to 70 IQ. You are like a negative IQ human. And I will explain this in the most simple terms. It doesn't matter. Because if Bitcoin goes up, the people that there are a lot of crypto native people that have held Bitcoin, and those people will rotate out of Bitcoin. They will rotate out of Bitcoin, and retail will come back in. It is just a matter of time. Meme coins will pump. Shitcoins will pump. Of course, alts are going to go up. Now, the question is, what alts? Now, historically, the answer was it would go from Bitcoin to large cap alts, to mid cap alts, to small cap alts. Now, here's why, these monkeys have some point, but they're still incorrect. That type of rotation might not happen as much because there is less capital that is just coming directly into crypto rails that is buying Bitcoin. And so they're less likely to filter down the risk curve indiscriminately. What's most likely to happen is that the people that are already allocated, the original crypto NEETs, are going to take their money that they made on Bitcoin, and they're going to rotate out into the smaller caps and into the quality stuff that they like. So the crypto insider coins, crypto native coins, are probably going to do well as people rotate out. Your average mid cap, and you're kind of seeing this, Matic has been a bit disappointing. AVAX post the major rally has been disappointing. Solana after the major rally has been disappointing, while Bitcoin has ripped. But what hasn't been disappointing are the meme coins and the AI coins. And the reason is because
you nailed that, by the way. You called for the AI coins to rally. You nailed that one. So props.
Jonah, speaking of nailing things, what did we talk? What was literally the one specific thing that we talked about on the previous podcast is the SEC getting blown the fuck out, and then coins related to SEC judgments doing well.
Hmm.
Guess what's doing well? All of DeFi, Coinbase stock, like the coins that
Yeah.
the SEC were trying to strangle now are ripping, and that's going to continue. And so again, these are the types of things that I'm looking for. I'm not looking to buy your Matics of the world. I'm not looking to buy your Solanas. I'm not looking to buy your, I mean, for sure, never a Cosmos, but basically the large caps. Oh, I'm going to rotate down the risk curve. I think that I'm going to put aside. And I'm going to say the key is to find what the crypto natives are going to get into. AI, obviously, a huge bucket. DeFi, I think, a good bucket, especially now with the talk about turning on fees and the lack of the SEC coming down. And then in the crypto, in the ETF world, it's possible that people go and rotate from the ETFs down the risk curve. Maybe they're going to go buy ETH, maybe they're going to go buy Coinbase stock. The one thing that I cannot explain, that I would love for anybody listening to this to comment on if they have some sort of explanation on this. Why is MSTR ripping? It doesn't. I was under MSTR is trading right now at a 50% premium to its Bitcoin holdings. I was always under the impression that after the ETF got launched, that premium would collapse because people were only buying MSTR to replicate Bitcoin exposure. But for some reason, MSTR is still ripping. So that's a weird one, no?
Yeah, I think it's weird too. Honestly, I think that's an anomaly. Another one is I didn't expect CME futures to trade at a 20% premium to spot after the ETF launch, because now any TradFi guy can show up, buy, IBIT, the BlackRock ETF, short the CME future, and collect basically risk-free arbitrage money. I do not for the life of me know why that money is there. Leverage capital's not that expensive. Leverage shouldn't trade at that kind of a premium to what is now like totally TradFi railed Bitcoin. And that doesn't make sense to me. The MSTR thing doesn't make sense to me. And in terms of your thesis about altcoins, I agree with it. I was looking at, I rarely do this, but I actually felt fucking stupid looking at $MAGA, the Trump coin. I'm like, how the fuck did I not see that one coming? Like it's,
Dude, of course. So
yeah,
one thing that I
all of
did,
this
by the way, is
shit. But
I
I have
bought
a
a bunch of
theory.
the
Sorry, go
tell me.
ahead.
But I bought a bunch of the Trump NFTs
Yep.
because one, you get to have dinner with the Donald, and obviously I want to get dinner with the Donald. So that's just a meme in itself. I'm gonna whisper in his ear to buy all my shit coins. The second thing is you can resell them, and they're such a good play on the Trump presidency, which I'm particularly bullish on. So,
I think he's going to
all of
win,
these,
and I think it's going to be very pro crypto, and I think it's going to get very memey and Pepe and all this shit. My theory to your point, Avi, is my favorite altcoin is like crypto punks. I think that I'm mulling buying another punk, and I think the reason why is you just watch punks and apes start gassing higher on this. The longer crypto sustains this rally, the more being invested in crypto is going to become a cool symbol of social status again. Like there are rumors out there that Bernard Arnault, the LVMH tycoon, his son who runs Tiffany's, is bidding one of the alien punks. Like if you show up to a date in New York with a Solana Saga phone, like it's not necessarily guaranteed that you're going home without getting laid anymore, right? Like these sort of crypto status symbols are kind of, I think they're going to start coming back, and it's going to be okay to be invested in crypto again.
Jonah, you ever seduce your wife with a punk?
Um,
That's worked for you?
no, definitely not. But I think that for many people, there will be some status attached to crypto again if this like let's say that Bitcoin slingshots past 100K. Sure, it may go to 30K first, but if it slingshots past 100K before the end of next year, like you're cool if you've got crypto. You're not a pariah anymore. You're not getting laughed out of the room. So
Yeah, the NFT flux is coming back in a large way, and I'm actually pretty excited to see it happen. I think that it's going to be I think that's going to be a very, very good investment. I mean, you know me on my Ether rocks. I love my Ether rocks. I think they're an amazing flex. Super expensive NFT. Not everybody can afford them. The group chat is lit. You get access to all these people. But the reality of the situation is that,
What's a rock
you know,
cost?
if
I
you
love that
have
they're all floors. They're all just as shitty as each other. What does it
no, no,
mean?
no,
A
no,
rock
no, no,
cost?
no, 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 no. They're different. There's regular shit rocks, and then there are blue rocks and red rocks. So there are variations on the rock, Jonah. Please,
What?
educate
Sorry.
yourself before talking. Like, otherwise, you just sound dumb.
I'm not
However,
afraid to sound dumb so that other people who listen to us can become smarter. Like I will sacrifice myself
yeah,
on Twitter or on a thousand apps.
that's very kind of you. You know, it really comes from a selfless place in your heart.
What's the
But
floor? What's the
I think
basic rock cost? 100 ETH, 200 ETH?
200 ETH is the floor
Damn,
right now
that's an autoglyph
to
right
get
there.
to get in. Yeah, to get into the rock club because there are 100. It's the second ever NFT created. Gets you access to an exclusive club,
Do
and
you
the
guys like all
reality
go
is,
to some private island and make out with each other, or how does it work?
look, I can't comment on that. There's, there are a lot of NDAs that have been signed, so there's like no ability. All I'll say is if you go to my Twitter profile and you check the banner, it's accurate. It's accurate. And that's what we do.
The war room.
Now, it's the war room. Exactly. So what I'll say about the rocks are that they are just a pure form of flex, and the pure NFT flexes I think will do well. And the art I think will do well. The squiggles, the autoglyphs, the fidenzas, the punks, that stuff is going to do well. I do think there's going to be a boom again of people trying to launch NFTs. I think that that's probably not going to go so well. I think what you're going to see is you're going to see more established actual artists release NFTs. You're going to see brands release NFTs, and that's going to be where a lot of the value accrues. I mean, even Trump, right? Trump's releasing NFTs, and that there's actually some interest in these things, and I think that shows you the direction of the NFT market. So if I'm allocating right now, I definitely want NFT exposure because I'm bullish on ETH, but I'm not so bullish on ETH that I want to hold a ton of ETH directly.
Mm.
So I like NFTs because they have two tailwinds. If ETH goes up, they probably go up in aggregate because all the NFTs I'm talking about are effectively issued on ETH. They're the older ones. And then the second thing is that they do have right that tailwind. It's basically the ETH tailwind and then the NFT tailwind. And I think that's good. And I like the ETH tailwind, but I'm not super confident on the ETH tailwind. It's very possible at this point ETH ETF gets denied or gets punted, or the SEC comes up with some ridiculous argument as to why ETH is a security and therefore blah blah blah. There needs to be litigation and this and this and this and that, and we have to
Well, if
pump
XRP
the
isn't a
ETF.
security, how sorry, if XRP isn't a security, how could ETH be a security? I don't know if
Johnny,
I'm like,
you're asking such amazing logical questions, but it's the same question as, hey, I mean, look, the SEC jumped the shark when they made the argument that we can't allow a Bitcoin spot ETF because the Bitcoin spot markets are manipulated, but we can allow a Bitcoin futures ETF that settles to a spot reference rate because we can monitor the future, right? They just completely
bonkers.
jumped the shark with that argument. It's so obviously logically flawed that I just don't put anything past them. The only thing that gives me hope, as we've talked about in the past, is that these guys have just been blown out so many times
No, no,
trying
no.
to come after crypto.
Avi, not okay. So my opinion on the SEC, like Gary Gensler has gotten so daddied, it's embarrassing. They've filed like 100 lawsuits that are nearly identical, lost the first 10 of them. The other 90 are going straight down the toilet. Like they should be ashamed of themselves. But here's the thing, Avi, like this is why I think we're only in phase one of the triple whammy here, the hat trick of crypto in 2024. First thing that happens is the BTC ETFs lands. Second thing is the halving. Third thing, Trump's gonna fucking win, right? And then what happens when Gensler and the entire SEC gets sent packing, and we go back to this like low or no regulatory regime with a crypto friendly NFT issuing like maniac president, like I think it could get pretty fucking degenerate up in here. And I don't even know if they have time to start denying ETFs because they're probably all looking for other jobs right now because they're about to get sent out of Washington, D.C. So like that's the bullish, that's the most honestly more bullish than the halving and more bullish than the ETFs. The thing that nobody is talking about is the single greatest headwind to crypto, the headwind that fucked with both you and me in our recent crypto careers is about to get rinsed. They're literally about to take their own medicine. These guys at the SEC, even if Biden wins re-election, like they've been so chastened by all of these losses, and if Trump wins, like they're all just gone. And so to me, I think that's the most bullish kind of like medium term catalyst for crypto. And I don't think they have bullets to like start these new like 2 to 3 year campaigns against ETH or anything else. I think the regulatory headwinds are just kind of like waning for now, and it's underpriced.
That is such a bullish rant, Jonah. I 100% agree with you, and I'm so excited to see this play out. Which is why, again, basically anything that's been attacked by the SEC, such a good buy right now, because I think it's still even now underpriced. Like look at the perp platforms. Injective, look at DYDX, SNX, Uni, all these guys underpriced. I still think so because they're no longer under the target of the SEC. Now, here's what I'll say is that doesn't mean that the ETH ETF is a gimme. It doesn't. And that I think is a big risk to the market still. And that would hurt alts in the short term. I think there needs to be some investigation on what the timelines are for this, because I do think it's important. At the same time, my personal view is that we're coming up close to the end of the Bitcoin rally relative to the alt rally. So if you look back at 2020, 2021, when Bitcoin first breaks the all-time high, it tends to rip. And then after the first blow-off, after the all-time high break is when the alts come out to play. But you don't necessarily want to try to time that perfectly. You kind of want to get out slowly from Bitcoin into alts because you can never get it perfectly. So if you're, for example, in the hypothetical portfolio, 100% BTC, 0% alts, at all-time highs, you probably want to be 80 BTC, 20 alt. Every 10% after that, 5%, 10%, you're shuffling more into alts. Shuffling more. Then on the blow-off, if you can trade that, fine. But generally what tends to happen is that blow-off BTC does badly. But what you'll see is alts actually do okay. And that's your sign. When there's a blow-off on BTC and alts actually do okay, post the all-time high break, boom, alt season. Shove in.
Watch the alt BTC pairs. Yeah.
Exactly. By the way, you're probably in for like 2 to 3 weeks. No more than that. 2 to 3 weeks. Take it and then get out. And that's sort of my plan right now. When it comes to trading this market, I think now is a very difficult time to be a passive investor in this market. So my general take is it's actually okay to be very passive during bear markets because you're just accumulating and you're finding, the right allocations. And generally what you want to do is you slowly want to get your cash back. Right. You're just dodging. Now it's the bull market. You can lose a lot of money very quickly if you're not clipping profits. And so you have to the way to do this, in my opinion, without blowing up your whole portfolio and round tripping everything, because at some point we will have another 80% drawdown. It's just a matter of time, is to just set levels to take profit and then set aside that cash and then just don't get back into the market with that cash. Right. And that's how I've outperformed over the last 3 cycles is when Bitcoin is 80K or 90K, 100K. What's the probability that we're 30, 40, 50, 60% below that price again at some point in the future? It's actually pretty high, my personal opinion. When Bitcoin trades 100K, I'm not going to be more than 50% exposed to the market. I'm just going to be slowly chipping out, because the reality is you have to detach yourself from this. You can't get caught up in the euphoria. You can't get caught up in the craziness. Just right now, take out a notebook, and write down your targets. Whatever your portfolio is worth, write down your targets. Write down your targets for your coins. And that is your guidebook. And you just pay attention to it. Just pay attention to it. And don't get caught up in the euphoria. And the worst thing that and I see this happen over and over, your one coin hits your target, you sell out. What do? You buy another coin. Don't do that.
No. Cash. So let me ask you a question, Avi. We've got our thesis on Bitcoin. We've got our thesis on alts and when to rotate it and out. ETH is a weird one. It's kind of in the middle of that sandwich, right? And my investment thesis for ETH is that at worst, even if some other L1 like Solana just kills it once and for all, it's always going to kind of stick around as like the legacy artwork chain with cultural significance and relevance and like the zeitgeist of the early 2020s. So I think that use case alone, just sort of preserving these important cultural artifacts, is worth, after another bull cycle or two, like over the long run, $500 billion, right? But then,
look, man, I'm just not interested in ETH.
No, but let me finish. So that's the worst case scenario over the medium to long term. For me, then let's talk about the use cases for crypto. If even one of these lands on ETH, you're looking at $10,000 to $50,000 ETH. So decentralized games and social networks, payments, a global decentralized casino industry like meme coins on ETH, right? NFTs as certificates of authenticity or ownership or tickets, decentralized physical infrastructure and networks like Helium and HiveMap. That looks like it's going to Solana, but if it goes to ETH, it goes to ETH. Tokenized funds, assets, and other financial products like global settlement, basically near instant transaction settlement, smart contracts as a replacement for legal documents, proof of identity. Like there's like 10 to 20 use cases. If one of them lands on ETH, you hit the fucking jackpot over the medium to long term. And it's easy right now to be like, ETH is still finding its footing. There's Bitcoin and there's alts, barbell, blah, blah. But like, I still believe in ETH because I think you're kind of long this extremely cheap call option, and your downside is capped by the fact that it already has found a use case. If in fact the only use case for a non-Bitcoin L1, which is sort of cultural artifact preservation. Am I off the mark here, Avi? What do you think? You're on mute.
So I think you're off the mark, but not because of what you said is wrong. So just take a step back. Whenever you see a trade presented in front of you, your first question should be, what is the best way to take advantage of this trade? Like how can I take advantage of this trade? There's this famous story that there was a guy that wanted to bet on the Japanese real estate, on Japan in general, right? And so he goes and flies to Japan, and he wants to meet a bunch of people and figure out, well, what's the best way to bet on Japan? How do I bet on Japan? So he goes around, he meets people, he's looking at real estate, he's looking at the stock market, tech companies, car companies, everything. And he goes and he meets one real estate agent, and the real estate agent is taking him around. And she says, well, you can look at currently built apartments, but why don't you also look at the apartments that are coming in 4 years, in 3 to 4 years? And he says, okay, what's the deposit look like on these apartments? She says 5%. And he looks at her and goes, so wait, you're telling me that I can put down 5% for the right to purchase this apartment at this current price in 4 years when it's built, but I don't actually have to, it's just the right to buy the apartment? And so what he ends up doing is he ends up basically buying like 50 of these apartments, right? He puts out his 5% deposit. He's just got a massive call option on the real estate market, right? And this is the best way. He ended up 20xing his money, like 30xing his money because of the way that he structured the trade. Whereas if he had just put all of his money and bought a current apartment, there's no way he would have 20x, right? But he got really smart leverage on the market. That's how I feel about ETH. I think ETH is going up. I think ETH is going to do well. But even in my best case scenario, the way that ETH goes up is it goes up 2x, 3x. So I don't want to own any ETH because that's just not a great return relative to the rest of the market, to me personally.
You get your
So the
two
way
to
that
three
I would
X
like
from
to,
Bitcoin with less
the
risk.
way exactly with less risk. So the way that I would like to own ETH is through NFTs. I would like to own ETH if I want it long data call NFTs, DeFi, things built on top of ETH. I would much rather own those things, which I think have similar risk to ETH. Actually, I think if you buy a punk, you're basically just taking ETH risk because I really don't think that punks are going to go down that much in ETH terms. I really don't.
They didn't through the lows. I
Yeah.
bought my punk near the highs and then watched, kind of with bated breath through the bear market. Didn't really nuke that hard. It's kind of back. Like it's pretty amazing. Those things held in
So,
like for fucking like something with 16 pixels in it. Like they really hung in there.
Mhm.
It's impressive.
so I guess what I'm trying to say is that while I like ETH and I agree with all of your points, I just don't think buying ETH and holding ETH is the best way to express that view.
Okay,
And
no,
so you need to
I'm
find
with
better
you.
ways to do it.
So you like let's say that one of the use cases for crypto that I just mentioned lands. I think there's a 25 to 50 delta that it lands on ETH, and by the time it lands and catches on, like it's already too late, right? So that's why I think ETH could. I don't think it's a 2 to 3xer if one of those lands. I think it's a 10xer, nice solid 10 bagger. So maybe we just sort of disagree about like our potential bullishness, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting caught up in the froth. Like I'm a bit starry eyed here. So I think the NFT thesis couldn't agree more with you in terms of like ways to play crypto, finding an actual use case, a new use case outside of Bitcoin as a store of value and NFTs, like any of these cases I mentioned. Like I think your odds are as good as any on Bitcoin or on ETH and Solana. You're supposed to just hold some of that because then you could get a 10 bagger in there if they actually become useful to the broader population. But yeah, it's not an easy trade right now. At the very least, I think ETH BTC could continue to run upwards for a little bit while we get hyped about the ETH ETF. But you don't want to hang on to that one hoping for like 0.08. Like it's not worth riding it that high. It's a trade. It's not an
I
investment.
agree. I think it's a trade, and I think Zoo for all of this fell to the hilariously good tweet. It's like, dude, just don't directionally buy ETH BTC. Just don't do it. But don't put that spread trade on, man. It's just it's kind of a nothing trade. You're taking crypto risk and you're basically probably getting no return for it.
Yeah.
So
But
my view. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, but in terms of like good, solid crypto risk, like to me, all of this ETF bullishness and froth is a confirmation of crypto's major use case thus far, which is Bitcoin as a store of value. There are rumors in the oil market right now, Avi, that the Saudi government is buying Bitcoin as a reserve asset. De-dollarization is a major narrative in the physical commodities space. You can't fucking sling a cargo of crude in exchange of bars of gold. But Bitcoin, like, no fucking problem, right? And there's only so much utility to some of these countries. Like, how much Chinese yuan does India want to hold? How many Russian rubles does China want, right? Like, the Bitcoin is the only bulletproof, fungible internet money that has any sort of hope of competing with the dollar. The rest of these currencies are fucking foobar for global trade. So I am getting excited about the de-dollarization narrative, and I
That's
think
that's
that
happening, and there's some geopolitical events that I think are furthering this acceptance. I mean, you're starting to see the nervousness. Look at Nigeria. So the Nigerian currency, naira, is inflating like crazy right now. And what are one of the steps that the Nigerian government has just taken to stop that is banning cryptocurrency because so many people are using Bitcoin to get their money out. Look, I've had conversations about this even, right? People are trying to get their money out of this country, and crypto is an avenue that people are looking at and exploring. So I think what is happening right now is that with the ETF, there's been this truly amazing legitimization of the market that we've all decided to spend our collective mind power on. And people are taking it very seriously. Government in Nigeria is cracking down.
I
Then
got
you
a
have
story for you about the
certain,
government of Nigeria. If you're finished with that thought, I can let you finish. Sorry.
there are just two more things here, and then please, I want to hear this. The second is that there are now discussions about not only seizing or freezing the Russian reserves, but seizing them and giving
Giving
them
them
to
to
Ukraine.
Ukraine. Yeah.
Insanity. That would be such an unbelievable death blow to our current financial system. Nobody would trust it ever again. No government could ever possibly trust it
Yeah,
again.
yeah. Just like
Not
very
only,
quickly on that
no,
point, like the Web3 thesis of like own your own data. When you post your cat pic on Facebook, they own your cat pic, not you. Who fucking cares about the picture of your cat and who owns it? But if you don't own your dollars, holy crap, right? So that's why Bitcoin is, like the United States, the ECB and the SNB, when they took Russia's money, that was financial nuclear warfare. No one expected that. I certainly didn't. But now if they go and give it to their enemies, like China and Russia will certainly be letting the rest of their petrodollars and petrodollar denominated securities roll off. And they're going to have to replace it with something. And Bitcoin is like kind of the best thing to replace it with. It's not gold.
yeah, it is a completely unacceptable risk if you're a government of a country that is not 100% fully aligned with America, and even if you are 100% fully aligned with America, if it is possible to not only take your money but give it to your enemies, you have to find alternative solutions. You have to.
Yeah.
It would be completely irresponsible not to. And so I think we're heading into this world now where not only do we have geopolitical tailwinds for this asset class, we have the institutional tailwinds. The headwinds are abating, and it's just a truly phenomenal time to be in crypto. And I think so I was talking about this with a few of my friends also in the space earlier this week. I really do think that this is still the only use case that's been that has panned out for crypto. I mean, I've been in this industry now for, God, 8 long years.
Casinos.
And
people prefer Doge to the slot machine. Can't deny that.
It's just moving money around, but it's such a good use case, Jonah. It's such a good use case. So, I'm still very bullish on BTC. I'm still very bullish, long term on it. I just think that, we are heading into and then the governments will try to fight, as we're seeing with Nigeria, and that will create problems. That will create FUD. It will probably create the next major buying opportunity. The way that I think about this is every cycle, it gets harder and harder and harder to buy the bottom. My prediction is that Bitcoin will probably bottom around the time that maybe not the US government, but some reasonable country outlaws the private use of Bitcoin. Whether it's Korea, whether it's, the UK, Spain, Italy, one of these countries will outlaw it, and there will be fear.
I have a more nuanced take than
years.
you on that last one, and I want to pair it with an anecdote. So you mentioned Nigeria. When I worked at Vitol, we used to ship a lot of Nigerian crude oil, and one day, one of our big streams of crude oil, we couldn't access it anymore because this rebel group called the Niger Delta Avengers, like Google them. These are the scariest looking people you've ever seen on the internet, right? They basically set up a Twitter account and they tweeted like, you are not getting any more of this Forcado stream of crude oil from, an area called the Creeks. It's like an ecological disaster in southeastern Nigeria where there's like a bunch of oil coming into creeks and then they ship it to an offshore platform. Anyway, these guys, they dove like 60 meters under the fucking Atlantic Ocean, like completely vaporized this pipeline and then mined the area with undersea mines, like real scuba special ops shit. And these guys came from like villages, right? Like this is like insane technological sophistication for a group of warlords in the middle of the jungle. And what I'll say here, Avi, they did it because they were upset with the Nigerian government for not giving them enough of a kickback from the petroleum revenue that they were reaping from this oil. They wanted more because the price of oil had gone up and their basically their bribes had stayed the same. And so, Avi, if you or I come from, a rich country like the United States and we want to be successful, we go to good schools, highly ranked universities, we go into training.
Jonah, I'm just looking at these guys are insane. These photos.
Dude, everybody should Google the Niger Delta Avengers. So anyway, I had this all explained to me at this one of these sort of evil James Bond villain offsites that Vital had at some chateau in the Black Forest near Frankfurt. Anyway, the guy who dealt with West Africa was talking about the sophistication of their operation. What I realized is if you are an entrepreneurial young man in America, you go to a good school, you get a good degree, and you go into some high paying job, and that's how you fulfill your ambition. If you're a smart, hardworking, talented guy and you're from the creeks, this is how you make your money, right? And to me, zooming back out to our conversation, no matter what the Nigerian government does or the Argentinian government or the Turkish government to ban Bitcoin or quell inflation in their countries or try and control it, there's always going to be a black market. There are always going to be Niger Delta Avengers out there hoarding what they need to hoard to make their buck. And I don't think you can hold this movement back because this is literally stateless money. And I think I continue to think that Bitcoin is a better store of value than, to be generous, the world's bottom 50% of currencies, but probably more like 60 to 75% of them. Bitcoin's just a better place to hold your money than the Nigerian naira or the Argentinian peso. There's not even a debate anymore about this. So I do think that even though governments may ban it, the United States has made it as hard as possible to trade and own crypto, and it's still fucking roaring. The U.S. could have killed it. I think it's too late even for that. I don't think a consortium of developing economies can ban this stuff and make it go away or even make it sell off. Because for every Nigerian ban, you have an El Salvadorian president tweeting "Hey, cope harder, Peter Schiff, you fucking idiot economist," right? It's crazy what's going on right now.
I 100% agree with you. Should we create a Discord group chat called the 1000X Delta Avengers?
That's what we have to call our community. The 1000X Delta
the Avengers.
Yes.
When people are going to think it's about the Marvel. No.
No. Eventually, how that story ended was the Nigerian government paid them off. They went back underground, under the ocean, repaired the pipeline, laid down their arms, demined the area, and they deleted their Twitter account. Or maybe the woke Twitter, Jack Dorsey Twitter took it down. Who knows? But yeah, 1000X Delta Avengers. Can't wait to drink with you somewhere.
We should host meetups. Actually, both Jonah and I are in the Holy Land right now. So for Shabbat, we will be hanging out, which is going to be great.
If anyone's in Jerusalem, come say hi.
Yeah, if anybody wants to go visit the Kotel with us, please give us a shout. But do it before sundown, because otherwise Jonah won't respond.
Love you guys.
As I've unfortunately learned too many times. He just disappears until the night.
Don't even try to pretend you don't vanish sometimes too, Avi.
Yeah, but I vanish for unrelated reasons, such as learning how to play roulette in Monaco.
I still want to go to one of these Ether Rock outings. It sounds like, now you got me under the idea.
We don't, Jonah, we don't have outings. I don't know what you're talking about. Stop bringing this up.
I imagine it like the commercial for the Fire Festival, like what it was supposed to be.
You can imagine whatever you want because it's correct. It is imaginary because it doesn't exist.
Fair.
Please let your imagination run wild because it'll be more interesting than whatever we're up to. I'll tell you that I agree with your general take that it's unstoppable. This tech is unstoppable. But if I'm thinking about, hey, what could cause a bear market? What could cause this to spiral? I don't think enough people paid attention to the fact that Nigeria is legitimately banning cryptocurrency exchanges. I mean, guys, I think that what we just saw is the seed of where the bear market begins. Now, I don't think the bear market begins for some time, but just keep an eye out because black markets take time to form. Bitcoin will take time to recover. I mean, China banned mining and it tanked Bitcoin a ton. A bunch of people started started selling in May of 2021. Again, it meant nothing, zero, for the long-term prospects of this asset. However, it did lead to a short-term depression. And so all I'm saying is that this little sliver of information that we just got that everybody's ignoring because Bitcoin is rallying, I think holds the key to how to get out of this market at the right time without suffering an 80% drawdown, which is why I care so much about it. And I care so much about how they came to the decision. And I care so much about what other countries might come to that similar conclusion. And I just want to make sure that even if it doesn't happen, I know what the warning signs look like, because I think that is how we end up in the next bear market. That, my own personal opinion, that's how we end up.
Which like 50 countries come out and ban it, basically.
Exactly. And that,
or 50 countries come out and add it to their balance sheet and start trading commodities denominated in it, and then you get the opposite price action. It's kind of binary, or they do nothing, which is what they've been doing. So we're teetering on the edge, and like you said, you have to be very, very careful. If there's a cascade of Bitcoin banning around the world, like get the fuck out of the way of that trade, and that's for sure.
Yeah, but you just got to pay attention to the warning signs, right? I mean, look, if 3 countries come out and ban it, I'm probably taking my exposure down.
Yeah.
Even if it's Nigeria, Kenya, and the DRC, Zaire.
DRC is actually the second country besides El Salvador to sanction, like legalize it as money, right? Or is that the other? Central African Republic. I'm sorry, not DRC. I mean, 100 million people live in Nigeria. It's Africa's most populous country, and Bitcoin is super fucking popular there. So, yeah, I'd imagine, and I know why, right? If you are born there, that is not necessarily like the most lucky place to be born, especially the more rural parts of the country. So I can see why people are storing their money there. It's a path to, financial independence for a lot of people. It is. Yeah, it's got to be crazy if you live in a country where it gets banned.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be, Bitcoin is really becoming the global asset right now, which is so satisfying for somebody that has watched this thing grow from, $500 a coin when nobody took it seriously. I just have always thought that this was sort of the end game. And I will say, there are people out there like Nayib Bukele who's just an absolute gigachad. And by gigachad, I mean, I think, how much did he buy? He bought a few $1 million, but he's a gigachad in terms of his rhetoric when it comes to BTC. And I do think that there is a genuine gulf between. Look, El Salvador is a very unique country. They have proven themselves willing to do things that the rest of the world doesn't have the stomach for. The rest of the world doesn't have the stomach for cracking down on crime the way that El Salvador does. The rest of the world doesn't have the stomach for offering their, offering economic freedom through cryptocurrency to their people, because they want the control, right? And so I think that it takes these renegade leaders to actually do that, which is why maybe Saudi Arabia will do it, maybe the UAE will do it. It's possible that Argentina does it with Javier Milei now in charge, who I really like. So I think the world is trending in towards that direction of, you're seeing that in one half of the hemisphere, and then the rest of the world that currently has the power is sort of entrenching themselves.
Yeah.
So it's this battle between the entrenched powers and the newfound.
But at least in the U.S., those entrenched combatants are losing. Like Jamie Dimon looks like an ass. Gary Gensler is like openly ridiculed, now. And I think, not to sort of like pretend that the SEC can't be threatening to crypto in the future. It certainly can, especially if Biden wins re-election. It's more, it's more just like put it this way. You just said that you've been following Bitcoin since it was $500, and you've loved to watch it grow and flourish the way that it has. Mm-hmm. I've been watching it too, but I didn't understand it until one day the light bulb went off, because I saw it through the lens of commodities trading and what it offered to people in emerging, like sort of petro economies. That was where it clicked for me. Through that lens, I was able to see what it offers in economy beyond just a, sort of a speculative, penny stock type casino outcome. Then I was like, oh, this is money. And this is like money that can move across the globe way easier than bank money, bank dollars, petrodollars. So I hope our listeners, I hope everybody comes up with their own framework for which Bitcoin just clicks for them, because you need a framework to trade effectively. Otherwise, you're kind of untethered and buying high and selling low and acting like a, unprofitable trader. So I really hope we can all kind of come up with these interesting frameworks and monitor either the confirmation signs or be sort of sober and honest when we see things happening that aren't necessarily in accord with our thesis. And maybe that's a time to lighten up or get out or get short.
I would agree with that, and I think the sober and honest is the most important piece here about it, right? I think when you're in a bull market, it's so easy to get carried away. It's so easy to get to smell your own shit, for lack of a better term, and just believe the things that you convince yourself of. Which is why it's these conversations that you might be listening to this podcast, on YouTube or on Spotify. You might hear a new thought. You might have had these thoughts before. You might have discussed things with your friends. Writing them down and just referring to them and being sober and honest with your assessment of the situation is so important. And trying to predict the future and then seeing how your predictions do is also extremely important, especially now in the bull market, because it's very, 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 very easy to get carried away. I do recommend that everybody take the time to go touch grass. I touched a lot of grass today.
I touched some oranges too.
I touched some oranges. I harvested some oranges outside of Tel Aviv. I did not look at the markets once because I'm positioned, and I think I picked like 10 kilos of oranges.
Well, how long does that take?
Yeah, 5 hours.
Damn. And does it feel good at the end? Do you feel like a sense of accomplishment?
Whoa! Do you see these scars? You want to know how I got these? You want to know how I got these scars, Jonah?
For everyone listening, audio only, Avi has some little red lines on his arm from touching a tree.
Tiny red lines from touching a tree.
One thing I've found, there have been times where I've earned a lot of money doing something at work and I haven't felt a thing, or maybe even felt a little shitty about it. There are other times where I planted a tree once and it felt amazing. The amount of money you make is not necessarily correlated with your level of enjoyment for an activity. It's a weird,
absolutely
thing.
not. I mean, I generated more dopamine from picking 10 kilos of oranges with a bunch of retirees from Boca Raton. Because everybody that's volunteering is coming from abroad right now. Actually, there was a really cute Japanese couple that was also volunteering with us, and I asked them, I said, how did you guys end up in Israel picking oranges? They look at me and they go, we just really like you guys. Okay.
we really like them too. A little too much sometimes. We eat their sushi. We marry their women. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but it was really, really heartwarming and sweet. But I mean, the amount of happiness that I generated from just being out there, not looking at my phone, picking some oranges. My friend was with me at the time. It's a really great feeling. All of this to say, whoever's listening, if you haven't touched grass in a long time, I highly suggest you go touch grass. It can be anything, any amount of grass, at any point, anywhere. Just go touch it.
What a great note to end the podcast on. I couldn't agree more. You've inspired me, Avi. I'm going to go outside and touch a pint of beer, just to.
That used to be grass, specifically wheat.
Yeah,
but it is no longer. So
awesome.
All right, Jonah. As always, a pleasure chatting with you.
Pleasure chatting with you too, Avi. None of this is investment advice. We don't know anything. Don't do what we say. Do your own research. And
Jonah knows some things. I know absolutely nothing.
Great talking to you, man. Until next week.